Hello, how's it going? Welcome back. In this video, we're going to talk about the increment and decrement operators in the Java language. All right, so we're going to start by defining a number equals, let's say, 5. And then I'm going to S out that number, nothing special. We're going to see 5 printed on the screen. Let's say that I want to increase that value by 1. So I can do one of two things. There is number equals number plus 1. What am I doing here? So I've been able to increase the value by 1. But what is happening here? Now, this may be confusing because if you're doing algebra and you go x equals x plus 1, that just doesn't make any sense. But this is not a algebra situation. This is a Java situation. So in the Java context, you're not saying the left equals the right. What you're saying here, though, is take whatever on the right-hand side, compute it, and then store it in the left-hand side, which is a memory location. So the fact that number occurs here and here doesn't really bother the language that much. So when number occurs here, what is the value of number? So we start the execution. Oh, actually, one handy thing to do is to debug. You can click that debug button here. Oh, yeah. Finished too quickly. So you can click that debug button here and then put a breakpoint where number is. So as you can see here, we have the console, which is where we see things being printed. And then here we have, don't worry about that. Don't worry about that. That's too advanced. But this is really interesting. We have the variables that are in this scope, which is from this guy to this guy. This is called a scope. So everything within this scope is available to us here. So what we're interested in is this value here. So as far as, let me actually put another breakpoint here. So right here, we don't have number yet. Why? Because the execution stopped at int number equal 5, right? So the only variable we have is this, args. Now, don't worry about args. It's all you need to know that it's a string array variable that we're going to discuss later, okay? Now, number hasn't been declared yet. So if you press F8, then you take one step in the code. So we've stepped over this guy, as in we executed this line. And as a result of executing this line, we got our number, which number equals 5. Now that's in the memory stored. So we've defined it and we've stored that value in the memory. So now what's going to happen is the Java language is going to look at number plus 1 and is going to say, all right, this is an expression that I'm going to have to compute the value for, and then take that value and store it in whichever memory location, aka variable, that I have on the left-hand side, which happens to be also number. It can be anything else, but in this case, it is number. So one neat thing you can do is, you see this little nice box called evaluate expression? This is an expression, right? So if you put the expression here, it's going to evaluate it for you beforehand. So we know the value of number is 5. I mean, we can see it clearly. And if we add 1 to it, then the result is 6. So 6 will be the result of executing this expression. And then this is going to be stored into number. So watch what happens to the value of number as I press F8, aka I execute this line. The value of number becomes 6, okay? And now when I print out, watch what happens here in this console thing. When I execute, I get 6 printed. So that's pretty neat. If you ever want to know what's going on in your program, then debugging is a very, very, very powerful tool. And debugging in IntelliJ is very powerful. I really love IntelliJ, this text editor. So we saw what happened here. In the Java language, anything on the right-hand side gets evaluated, stored in the left-hand side. Now, we can increase by 5 if we like, and then we get 10, right? So I'm not debugging now, by the way. I'm just clicking run to, I don't need to debug. Now, let's go back and do this. Now, turns out it is a very common operation in programming to add 1 or to subtract 1. You can also subtract 1 if you want. You can multiply by, let's say, 2. You can do anything you want, But it turns out that subtracting 1 or adding 1 to a variable is a very common operation in the Java language. One example would be, if anybody watching the video is familiar with loops or for loops, then you might want to increase by 1 or decrease by 1 on every iteration. If you don't know what I'm talking about, it's fine. We're going to talk about it in future videos. But yeah, like I said, the +1 operation and the -1 operation are very common, so that in the Java language, we have a syntax sugar or special syntax that we can use to perform exactly this. And the syntax is ++. So if you add ++ before a number and you hit run, now notice we gotten rid of this. So the ++ is actually doing the increment here. And this ++ is exactly this. It does what this does. It adds 1 to the value and then stores it in the value. Okay. If I repeat this multiple times, I'm going to get 6. So what happens here is number equals number +1, store it in number, and then print number. So this gets evaluated first. And then this gets evaluated. And then the printout statement gets executed. And then this gets evaluated. Then the printout statement gets executed. Okay. Now you may do something like this, and then you're going to get 7, 7. So what's going on here? What's going on is I've added 1 to number, and then number's value becomes 6. But then I've added 1 to the expression being printed. And then, so the whole, the summation of 6 + 1 is 7, but I've only updated the value of number. I've only incremented the value of number by 1. So this one here doesn't get stored in number. So number's value is 6 + 1 is 7. And then here, number's value is still 6 + 1 is 7, then print 7. Okay. You could do the same for we can turn this. Well, let's comment this out first. You can do this the same with decrement operator. Number equals number minus 1. So that doing this is the equivalent of saying number equals number minus 1, which will be 4 stored in the number memory location, updating it to 4. All right. So, and if you do the same here, you're going to get, the same we did earlier with the +++1 and then the ++, you're going to get 3, 3. Why? Because number is currently 5, minus number will be 4, minus 1 is 3, and then the value of number is still 4. So number minus minus number would be 3, and then you print out 3. So now this is called a prefix operator, as in it comes before the variable name. Oh, by the way, you can't do this to a non-memory location, like a arbitrary number. You can't do that. Yeah, you can't, because the required is variable, found is value. So here, this is a value, but for this operator to work, you need a variable after it, because obviously you need to, you can say 1 minus 1 is 0 when you're doing minus minus, but you need to take that 0 and store it somewhere, like number. So you can't do that. You can do something called postfix, which is the same as we did before, but the minus minus come after. So let's run this and see what's going on. So we still got 5. So the value was not decremented. No, the value was decremented. It is just decremented after the execution of the whole. So remember with the minus minus before, the value gets decremented first, then the print statement gets executed, and then we see 5 drop down to 4. However, and that's prefix. Now, if you're dealing with the postfix, then the value gets decremented after everything gets executed. So or let's say +1. So what happened here is we have this thing which will decrement the value after the execution, after the evaluation of this whole expression and the execution of this thing. Then it's going to decrement the value. So this thing will evaluate for now to 5, and then when you add 1 to it, it becomes 6. Then you print out 6. Then after you complete this statement, you're going to execute number equals number minus 1, and then the value of number will be dropped to 4. So if you just come here and print out number, you're going to get 4. So that's the difference between the prefix and the postfix. The prefix would do the operation prior to everything else. And then the postfix will do the operation after everything else. I hope that makes sense. So executing this is equivalent to removing those minus minus and then saying number equals number minus 1. So having the minus minus here before saved us having to type this in here. And the output is identical. That's it for this video. I hope it was useful. If you have any comments or suggestions or questions, please let me know in the comments section below. And in the next video, I think we're going to talk about the operator precedence in arithmetic expressions and the use of parentheses to override the operator precedence. So stay tuned for the next video, and we'll see you soon. Cheers. Bye-bye.